You all set? All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular session of the Swampscott School Committee. Today is Thursday, March 23rd. We are live at Swampscott High School. You can view us tonight on YouTube and Facebook. There's a little bit of a technical challenge. Glenn Pastor, Chair of the School Committee. Welcome, and thanks for joining us. I call this meeting to order, and if you are so able, can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everybody. And we will start the meeting with committee announcements. Ms. Marshall, could you start us off?
I don't have anything tonight.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wright?
I just want to make sure people know that everyone in the school community and the town community is invited to the auction tomorrow night at the high school. It's to raise funds for the class coffers, for the junior and senior class specifically, so that since the last couple of years they haven't been able to fundraise because of COVID, so their coffers are a little low, and they'd like to defray the cost of proms and yearbooks and things like that for the senior and junior classes. So there's really great auction items. I got a little preview of some of the things. I saw a house in Martha's Vineyard for a long weekend.
Wow.
It's pretty nice.
Wow.
There's a couple great things. So I encourage people to go to that. It's from 6 to 10 tomorrow night here at the high school.
Great. Mr. Jancis?
Just very quickly wanted to acknowledge the great job all the students did with the concert last Thursday. I was in the audience and it was tremendous, and just want to just commend all the students who participated. They did a great job, and Mr. Ovey as well for pulling it all together.
Great,
Thanks.
you. All right. Sophia?
I don't think I have anything tonight. Just the auction, so you took it right out of my mouth.
Oh,
Sorry. That's okay.
Excellent. Can we bring up Amy somehow?
I'm working on it.
Okay. Ms. O'Connor is off-site this evening, but she is joining us via Zoom. Ask for everyone's patience.
Amy?
Ms. O'Connor, can you hear us?
Someone needs to make her a panel.
She said she's in the audience, she thinks. Can somebody move her over?
Can you move over?
Let's see.
We're getting to you, Ms. O'Connor.
How do we do that? It's not letting me.
Want some help, John?
Please.
Yeah, it's not letting me do it, Joe, sorry.
Are you in as a host?
Let's see.
So go to attendees. And right click on her.
Yeah, nothing.
All right, hold on a second.
What can go wrong will go wrong, technologically wise.
At least I feel somewhat comforted that I actually knew what to do. It just,
Yeah, that's very good.
computer just didn't do it.
That's very good.
All right, she's in.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. Ms. O'Connor, if you can hear us, do you have any committee comment?
Yeah, I can. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Joe. I want to echo what John said. I was blown away when sitting in the audience, particularly by that jazz band. And I sent Mr. Rovey a note saying that it was just pretty stunning to see what a group of musicians go from. The last time I saw a concert was 5th grade. It was a pretty painful concert, and seeing that they grow into these these kids in high school is really like it. I'm not being flip when I say it. It sort of brought a tear to my eye. It was very impressive. But I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Rovey because he made a very quick change from the event right before that, which was an amazing fundraiser that Mr. Temmie Bailey put together for the teacher-student basketball game. And the crowd, the stands were packed.
Great.
No, standing room only. And it was really a great community event. So congratulations to everybody who was involved in that. And the kids beat the teachers by a point. So just wanted to throw that out there. Really awesome work from the teachers.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. I also do not have a committee comment at this time. So we'll turn it over to you, Superintendent, for your report.
Thank you. So in front of you tonight, you have the first reading of the school calendar for the 2023-2024 school year. I'm going to take you through month by month. This is the first reading. It would come back to you for a vote. So looking at the August calendar, the staff would return on the 28th and the 29th of August. Pre-K in grades 1 through 12 would return on the 30th. And kindergarten screening would take place on August 30th and August 30th and September 5th, and their first day of school would be September 6th. Actually, there's 3 days, the 31st, the 30th, the 31st, and the 5th. And then their first day for kindergarten is on the 6th. There's no school for Yom Kippur on September 25th. And no school, by contract, the teachers get the Friday off before Labor Day and Labor Day. In October, we have an early release day on October 4th for professional development, pre-K to 12. And we will be following the dismissal times as we've done this year. Elementary is 11:30 and 5 through 12 is 12 p.m. And just as a reminder for the committee, the reason we have those different times is because we utilize the elementary and middle school bus, the elementary for the middle school bus, and so we need to have those staggered times. There is no school on October 9th for the Indigenous Peoples Day. We have an early release day on October 25th for professional development. The 26th, there's just elementary parent evening conferences that are noted here. And the 31st, day conferences is an early dismissal. So there is a professional development and an early release day for, there's actually 2 professional developments and an early release day for parent conferences. On November 8th, we have early dismissal for middle school for day and night conferences. We have no school on November 10th for Veterans Day observed. We have an early release day at the middle school on November 14th for parent conferences, and an early release on the 16th for day and night conferences. There is an early release day on November 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving. That is a no lunch served early release day prior to the holiday, and then the district is closed on the 23rd and the 24th for Thanksgiving break. Moving into December, we have a professional learning day scheduled for December 6th. We have a half day on the 22nd, again by teacher contract, and no lunch is served on this day. These are the only 2 days that are part of our food services contract where no lunch is served, and that is right before the December break, and the district is closed December 25th and reopens on Tuesday, January 2nd. There's an early release day on January 10th for professional learning. On January 11th, there is an early release day at the high school for parent and night, day and night conferences. And then there's no school on the 15th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There is an early release day on February 7th for professional development again. And then the February break is the 19th through the 23rd, and the district is closed. Moving into March, we have an early release day on March 6th for professional development. And we have no school on Good Friday, which is March 29th. Moving into April, we have an early release day, grades 5 through 12 at noon, and elementary at 11:30 again. This is a tentative professional development day. We actually inserted an additional one in case we had a snow day or something on one of the other days. So this is an if-needed day, if we don't need it, and we'd let families know well in advance. And then we have the April break, April 15th through April 19th. In May, we have Memorial Day on May 27th. The district is closed. On June 6th, an important day for our kindergartners, that there is no kindergarten on June 6th because it is new kindergarten visitation day. It's nice to get back to that. And then, without any snow days, our last day of school would be June 12th. So that means the last 2 days are early release days on June 11th and June 12th. If that's the case, if we were to have snow days, they start on the 13th. And so if we were to have our 5 snow days, our last day of school would be on the 20th, which would mean that the 18th and the 20th would be early release days. We observe Juneteenth Independence Day on June 19th, so that's a day in between. But I do ask the committee and parents to keep in mind that by contract, the last 2 days are early release days, so whenever they may fall. But it's nice to see an early date of the 12th if we don't have any snow days, if we certainly have a winter like this year. So this is a first read. Committee, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But I think there's a total of 6 early release days for professional development, in addition to the one, if needed, that would be the 7th. But we would stick with 6, no matter what we do.
Okay. Anyone have any thoughts, comments? John? Amy, any thoughts, comments?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. I don't either.
Okay, I'll move on to the next item. The next 2 are just for your information. The field trip to Spain came before you and was supposed to occur this year. There were not enough students that attended, and so they're moving the trip to, I'm sorry, it was supposed to happen in April of this year. There's not enough students, so they're moving it to next year, and I just thought the committee should know because these do come before you, and so we added it to the agenda as not enough student interest, moving it to next year. It's already been approved, so we don't need additional approval on that one. And then the Quebec trip, we received a nice photograph and of the students. It says, "Dear Pam and school committee, what a wonderful trip we had to Quebec. With 23 of our French high school students, we stayed at the historic Chateau Frontenac. In the background of this picture, students toured Quebec and learned about the rich history and culture of the region. After trekking across the hills and plains of Abraham, students participated in an interactive lesson related to historic battles that this fortified city has endured. Exploring the Ice Hotel, visiting the Montmorency waterfalls, and tubing at Valcartier were also big hits. Our students were commended on their exemplary behavior throughout the trip, and we were proud to watch them use French in their daily activities. It was a great experience for everyone." This is from Jane Barrett and Jessica Diaz, our teachers here at the high school.
Excellent.
Isn't
That's
that
so great.
nice to see? They
So
also
good.
sent some maple candies, but they didn't last for this meeting. So I whited out that line.
Can you indulge me for just a second on
Sure.
that? So both my girls went on that trip.
Oh, nice.
They had a great time, and I just want to thank both Ms. Diaz and Ms. Barrett for all the work they put into this. And, you know, it sounds like it was kind of cold, so, but everybody, you know, got through it, and it just sounded like a wonderful experience. So just, you know, again, thank you to them, and, you know, I'm so glad the students had a good experience up there.
Great.
Puts a smile on my face just to know kids are traveling, you know, the band trip, Quebec.
Yeah, wow.
It's nice to be back to some sense of normalcy.
That's great. Oh, awesome. It looks amazing. Did the girls have a good time?
Yeah, it was great experience for them.
Great. Awesome. Great.
The next item I wanted to update the committee on, and thank you, Suzanne, for reminding me, that we talked about the meal charge policy, and I was tasked with going back, and we were talking about, collecting the money before the students became seniors and potentially not getting their caps and gowns. And so I went to the middle school leadership and asked, what did they think was an appropriate, I guess, hook for the students at the middle school to become current with their food service bills. And both Ms. Sato and Mr. Kalishman said the DC trip or Camp Andrake. And that's a good time of year to really have that as a hook. Like you have to have your food services bill paid in order to participate in the Washington DC trip, or if you're staying back, Camp Andrake. So I think that's reasonable.
So we're okay with.
It's the committee's decision if they want to add it to a policy.
It's like, it feels so punitive for.
But can I have?
But it does say that they're very small balances.
Yeah.
Right, can I have Ms. Stella share with you the group, the information she put together? Wait a minute, you have it here? Oh, you have it, okay,
on screen,
perfect.
yeah. Thank you. So, with the help of the food service director, we went back and kind of looked at historically, in total, how much do we tip, is there in unpaid balances that the general fund needs to offset? And on average, overall, it's about $5,600. And so far for 2023, the highest balance that any child has so far this year is $38. The vast majority of them are less than $6, so.
Do you want me to put it up? I'm trying to
Yeah, if you don't mind.
get there.
Actually.
Sure.
I do have to say, this is much better news than I think many years ago, clearly prior to 2018. There were years that it was, the outstanding balances, I want to say, were $9,000 or $10,000. So to see this was much better, much of an improvement, and to hear that the majority of the unpaid balances is less than $6, like, that's doable for families,
Right.
Is there something, there is something that goes home in the beginning of the year that talks about food service and how you sign up for free and reduced?
Absolutely.
Is there a way to put like, a highlighted bulletin on it by middle school? By 8th grade, you need to pay this by this date, or just so people know the consequences up front?
Yeah, yeah.
I think we should
Yeah.
I think we should start planting that seed, day one.
Yeah.
If we're really gonna
Right.
hold to it on day
So-
180.
I agree. It's also, and just to the community, we're asked, at least I'm asked often, is, how do people get involved who may not have students in the district anymore? You read a lot, or you might see something on social media that someone will come into a school district and just donate whatever is outstanding.
Yes.
That's a great, we live in a very great community, and someone out there is really looking to, as a way to give back to whether their kids are now grown and flown and they want to donate some money, please contact the business manager or the superintendent's office. That would just help, pay some of these fees. But I agree with you, Suzanne. We need to let everybody know as soon as humanly possible. And whether it's $6 or $60, just let everybody know.
And I do want to point out that the food service director does monthly send out a communication
great.
saying, this is your unpaid balance, this is the amount.
Okay.
So it's not, they are getting that every month.
Right, so it shouldn't be a surprise
No,
Right.
from 8th grade.
correct.
Great.
Maybe on those notices too, there could be like a reminder.
Right.
Don't forget by 8th grade you pay it. to do
Yeah, I
this.
like that, the more
You know,
often we
like
put it in front of
So
people.
it's just not a surprise.
Right.
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 Or no one can say, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Right.
They
And so
still will.
So that concludes my report. I know that we were looking at bringing a revised policy back, but I do like these ideas of procedures, adding that nugget to the free and reduced lunch, and adding it also to those letters that go home, and we can work with food services to make sure that happens.
Okay.
And then
Thank you.
so,
Can I jump in real quick?
Of course, Amy.
This was the first I have heard of Camp Andrake, and I assume I know what it is, but what is it?
When students, for whatever reason, do not go on the Washington DC trip. They do not attend regular classes. Mr. Andrake, the legend, created something called Camp Andrake, and they are busy doing science experiments, doing very project-based learning for the time that the other students are in Washington, D.C., so that they have a very special event happening at school while our students are on the field trip to Washington, D.C.
So even in his retirement, he's continuing to do this amazing program.
I'm not sure if he's going to come back and do it, or if he's passed it off, but it is named Camp Andrake.
Okay.
If it will ever, forever be known as Camp Andrake.
I'll be curious to see how that.
Yeah.
Actually.
Thanks.
Let me go back to the, so should the policy committee, make sure like, I know the policy right now says the high school, whatever.
should add in the
we should
middle
add a
school.
middle school thing in.
And then we can do the rest.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Director of Finance reports.
So would you like me to go over the 24 budget agreement in detail, or?
Yeah, why don't we start with that, I think. That
Okay.
makes the most sense.
Sure. We discussed this on Monday night with Finance Committee, but with the help of Select Board and Superintendent Angelakis talked about this at our last meeting. There was a draft agreement created in regards to the FY24 budget for the school department that laid out some key areas. The first would be that the town would be adding $130,000 in technology to the approved capital budget. They would be putting an article on for this town meeting, May of 2023, for town meeting members to vote on establishing a special education reserve fund. Separately, there would then be an article for town meeting members to vote as well on transferring $310,000 from free cash to fund the initial balance in that reserve fund. And that $310,000 is made up of what is the 14% rate increase that we saw over and above what we typically would expect. I do want to point out, and I did point it out on Monday as well, that number, we probably would have expected to see more in the 500 range. We had 2 expensive placements that were coming out of our budget for this year. And initially, that was going to be a budget savings and help the school department budget. But because of the 14% rate increase, it negated that savings and added $310,000. So in this sense, Swampscott's actually not being impacted quite as much by the 14% as potentially some other districts because of that. The superintendent and I have also committed for FY24 to be applying for Medicaid reimbursements, and the town has agreed, should this reserve fund be created at town meeting, that those reimbursements would go into this new special education reserve fund. At this point, it does look like we'll be receiving upwards of about $300,000 in additional net Chapter 70 money. And we did discuss, the town first utilizing that to offset school employees' health insurance increases, which we think is fair. And that if there is anything left after that, that money would then come to the school department. And that's pretty much the crux of the overall agreement. The last piece being, if all those kind of terms I just discussed happened, then we would submit a budget that was at the 2.6% that was originally requested by the town administrator.
All right, thank you. I know we have many people have many questions and thoughts, so Karen, could I start with you, please?
So just so that it's clear for everybody watching, this agreement still leaves the district with looking to make about 640,000 in cuts.
Yes.
And so I just think people need to be aware of that. Maybe we could talk about what that means and, you know, how the school district can or can't deal with that for the sake of the, you know, the public watching.
How do I say this? I guess what I would say to summarize, you know, 644,000 is a lot of money. I'm not thrilled by the work that we're going to have to continue to do, but we will do it. But I am incredibly grateful that there was collaboration with the general government side to give us another $440,000 in different buckets. The other thing that I'm grateful for is that we've opened the conversation to school technology in the capital budget, as long as it meets the criteria. Because years ago, when we had that conversation about technology, it was like, you know, no technology ever, even if, because there was a conversation and discussion about whether or not it did qualify. I'm grateful that we found items that qualify under the guidelines of capital requests, and we were able to move that 130 over there. What I would just remind the committee is that the budget conversations for the leadership team and central office started in October. You know, we do it every year. We look at programs, we look at class sizes, we look at enrollment, and then we have to make some tough decisions. What I think, I don't know if I had a chance to say it at Finance Committee Monday night, but what I think I want to impress to the public and to the committee is we've gotten 23 kids, now we had another one come back from St. John's Prep. 23 students have come back to the middle school since the beginning of this year. There is a reason they're coming back. You know, we have a robotics program. We have more than one language in our school. And there are certain things I'm not willing to give up, even if those class sizes are small, because they're, number one, building feeder programs to the high school, and number two, are attracting some of our students back to our schools. So the balance in going in and finding $644,000 worth of cuts is, where are the efficiencies? Is there an oversight of fat, if you will, which I know there isn't, but are there creative ways to maybe look at schedules in order to change some structural things that will allow us some savings? And that we started those conversations, we have some drafts of ideas, and now, you know, Ms. Stella and I were talking about the fact that we're just going to have to dig down, look at everything, put it across the board. Would I love to be fully funded? I absolutely would. But I am grateful that we're sitting here tonight with $440,000 more than we were when I first presented the budget.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that I've struggled with this, you know, through this budget season, and I am happy that there was collaboration. I am happy that we have added, you know, 440,000 back in whatever way it comes to us, right? It's still money that is coming to the district and to the students. Do I wish it was more? Do I wish that, you know, that number was higher to begin with? Yes, and I think that's going to be incumbent on our entire board to have that discussion with the town moving forward for, you know, next year or subsequent years, to talk about the policies that are in place that create the number in the first place. But for this particular year, you know, the budget is what it is. I am reluctantly happy that we've gotten, you know, some of it back, and that there does seem to be some momentum and, even more important, understanding on the town side of what our needs are, and that what we're asking for is not anything less than what we actually need, if that makes sense. So, so I guess that's where I stand.
Thank you, Karen. Suzanne?
I have to agree with everything you said, Karen. I think that it would be really nice for us to make a budget that does everything we want to do and more, because our kids and our teachers deserve that. And I mean, the reality is that's, pie in the sky. And I think that this compromise is fair to all those people involved. And I agree with you, Karen, like, we need to start the talk, tomorrow about how this budget is how the 2.6 is arrived at, and what are the levers that make it go up or down every year, or that could potentially make it go up or down every year, so that we can start to think about, the budget number we want rather than what's told to us. And so I think that it would be nice to have all the money, but I'm happy with how it's played out right now with getting the compromise and some extra money from the town. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. John?
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So I've struggled with this as well, and I've really tried to keep an open mind through this whole process, as far as listening to the pros, listening to the cons. And I think for me, at the end of the day, I look at the $644,000 in cuts, and I can't help but think that's going to be very impactful. And I don't think there's any other way around that. And looking at it that way, and looking at the budget number that was arrived at, I'm just not sure that's the budget that we can keep educating our kids to the standard we've become accustomed to, and frankly, I think that a lot of the parents expect. So that's been my challenge looking through this, and I think, to Karen's point and Suzanne's point, I think the dialogue, the cooperation that has started here is encouraging, and it should continue. And again, just for me, taking a step back, I mentioned this at, I'm not sure if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, but I mentioned about the town funding the veterans' housing on the Lynn-Swampscott line, which I think is great. And just for some additional perspective, my dad and my father-in-law were both captains in the military. My grandmother was a Gold Star mother, so I'm very supportive of veterans and veterans' causes. So I think it's a good thing. So I look at that, and then I look at kind of what we've been dealing with for the last few months, and I wish I could see that same commitment coming from the town to support what we're trying to do here. So, and again, to Karen's point, we don't want more than we need, but to keep doing what we need to be doing, I'm not sure this number gets us there. So that's kind of where, Glenn, that's kind of where I've landed on this.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Amy?
I really appreciate the movement of the last 2 weeks that has happened between general government and school department. And again, appreciation to Mary Ellen Fletcher for taking the reins there. I'm not convinced that would have happened without her. I'm really concerned about this, and I think at the end of the day, I am angry about the fact that this number is coming back before us for another vote, because it feels very performative to me. This does not, when general government says this is your budget and this is your budget, having us jump through all of the hoops to get to that point feels like nothing but a performance. And I don't appreciate that. It weakens everything that the school board is responsible for. So I begrudge this process. And I think that Swampscott is, I believe that Swampscott has the money to fully fund school needs. And I'm going to leave it at that.
All right, thank you, Amy. From my perspective, I think like all of us sitting up here, and I would include you, Superintendent, as well, this has been a gut-wrenching last few weeks when we look at the numbers. I agree with Suzanne that, you know, I'm grateful that we have the additional money, and I'll agree with the rest of the folks who have spoken, is I'm unhappy that the number is what the number is. And I'm very torn with this because, you know, as you sit up here as a school committee member, your really only job is to make sure that the schools have the money that they need. And so I am truly unhappy with the fiscal policy of the town side. I feel, and I've said this before, the increase in tax has been artificially low for several years. And it is really starting to hurt us on the school side. Now, we will educate, of course, that's our job, and that's the job we charge you with, Superintendent. And you and your team will do a fantastic job doing that, as you always have. But at the same time, we really need to help. And this budget really does not get us there. I am grateful of the additional funds, but it doesn't really get to what all the needs are. And John, to your point, you know, it's great to purchase properties, you know, and it's great to help everybody, but I think maybe it's time for the town side to look within itself. We have a very good school system here that could be a great school system with a little bit more funding. So I am hopeful that come the summer and the fall, we will have a financial summit with various boards on the town side to talk about going forward, so this does not have to happen again. It is really important. Every one of us who are sitting up here really looks at every dime and every dollar. And we're telling you that to make nearly $750,000 in cuts is difficult and makes everyone very sad and unhappy. But we will do what we have to do to educate the children of this community, but to the parents, to the taxpayers of this community, and I know I've said this before, I'd like you to take a long, hard look at what you want this district to look like. There's a reason everybody lives here. And I'll leave that at it is. So if I understand, we need to take a vote to approve the budget number.
Yes.
Okay. So can someone please make a motion to approve the FY24 budget agreement as you have in front of you?
I'll make the motion to approve the FY24 agreement and the FY24 proposed budget.
Great, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. What I'd like to do is a roll call vote, if I may. Ms. Marshall?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. O'Connor?
No.
Okay. Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Giantis?
No?
Mr. Pastor, I will vote very reluctantly yes. The motion carries, And I thank everybody for their time, for their energy, for their passion in this. And we wish you the best of luck as you go through this budget process.
I think I'm getting hives.
All right.
Thank you. I'm like suddenly scratching.
Ms. Stella, you can continue.
Thank you. So next up, we just wanted to give an update to the committee on where we stand for this budget year, as it's rapidly coming close to a close. So as we stand today for FY '23 and our projections, and, you know, we've encumbered salary, annual contracts, expenses, and any of the known expenses coming up. We've projected our salaries through the end of the year based off our current staff. And we will be spending our full appropriation. Right now, we're projected to have $11,000 surplus, but I'm sure that will change. And so just a few highlights on the different cost centers and where we're projecting them to end the year. The administration cost center is projected to end over budget by about $98,000, and I think I potentially mentioned this during the FY '24 budget sessions, but that main driver is actually our unemployment. Our unemployment line in '23 had been reduced significantly from its previous budget, and that was based off looking at the last few years, and unemployment can be somewhat unpredictable, and so now we're actually spending up to what used to spend. So this is one of the lines for '24 that we did increase just based off what we're seeing this year. District-wide, we're projected to be over budget by about $11,000. There's really no significant drivers. With that cost center, general education, we're projected to finish under budget by about $117,000. Mainly, this is due to salary savings due to turnover and some substitute teacher savings as well. Our school facilities cost right now is projected to be $152,000 under budget, and a lot of that actually comes from, there's an HVAC position that was budgeted, but they never hired or filled. And then there's been some open positions within the custodial staff that, for a number of reasons, have gone unfilled as well, too. We do continue to work with the facilities director because there were some purchase orders that needed some cleaning up. So this you might see the school facilities number between now and the end of the year kind of swing a little bit as we're looking to kind of clean up those open purchase orders. Special education is projected to be over budget by $148,000, and that was driven by 2 additional FTEs that we had to hire. And then, you know, we anticipate utilizing circuit breaker as was planned originally when the budget was created.
Great.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions about what Ms. Stella has discussed? Anybody?
I'm sort of wondering, like, why does unemployment swing the cost? Is it like based on how many people are let go? Like,
Yes, I mean, that's definitely a factor, but there's also a 3-year look back, which is actually what's oddly driving it this year. So some individuals that were let go a year or 2 are now coming back on our unemployment again this year.
Really?
Yes, unfortunately. So, because we were kind of digging into that a little bit, trying to figure out what was really driving those
that
claims.
just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
That seems like a big sling or something. I don't even know what it's called.
It's a big number, actually.
And the other question is that $11,000 that you were saying that we might be over budget by, is that some of the money that will go into the reserve or the stabilization for our agreement
Oh, if we have unexpended
Yeah,
If we have
appropriation.
tailings, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
We
is
have-
does it start this year to go with?
We haven't actually discussed that, but I would imagine, I mean, that is actually fairly typical for school districts that have a special education reserve. If there
Right.
are any unexpended budget dollars at the end of the year, it's pretty standard that would then.
Yeah, I just didn't know
It
if it
makes
started
sense.
this
That
year
makes
or
sense.
next year.
Yeah,
Well, we're still working on the agreement, so we
Right.
could make sure that we add that in there.
Yes, that's a great point, Suzanne, thank you. John, Karen? Amy, any thoughts?
Nope.
Okay, I don't either. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. Chair updates, I just really want to thank several members of the community had contacted me regarding the dual FinCom school committee meeting, and just some really great questions. A couple of them, I mean, I did refer, I don't know if they reached out, but I referred them to you. I just was not in a position to comment on. But I appreciate the community feedback. It was good to hear. It was, questions were really good from kind of a cross-section of parents and community members, so I appreciate that. And then the only other thing is, just again, talking about that, so everyone is aware, on Monday, this past Monday, the school committee did meet with the finance committee in a joint session and to discuss budget, not only for fiscal '24, we had some minimal discussions about budget going forward. And what I mentioned earlier is I think having a summit would be a really smart idea for everybody, so everybody can just start wrapping their hands around fiscal 25, 26, et cetera. So that's all I have. Subcommittee.
I just want to say on letter A, we weren't sure if this was coming here tonight, and because there's nothing linked, so I said we'd table it.
I know, yeah, we can table it, because I know that you said you
Yeah.
had gotten something you were gonna
Some
send, and I
guidance,
never
right.
got that. And also, the MASC policy website's been down
Oh,
for a
okay.
little bit of time, so I just wasn't able even to get their exemplar policy.
We
off
didn't
it.
link anything, but we put it there as a
Yeah,
parking
no,
place,
'cause I
so.
know we talked about
Right.
it. So the good and the bad news is, it's gonna be on our agenda for updating anyway, and it turns out there's a whole bunch of other policies that the MASC sent out, a policy, 2023 policy updates.
Okay.
So like we did, like you and I did back in 17.
wow.
Yes.
So there's a big list of policies. So I started a spreadsheet, and I have a shared folder that I'll share with everyone. And I think John and I are gonna have to work on sort of, I entered the ones that need to be updated or changed, and so we'll just sort of start going through them, probably like a section at a time like we did before. But the good news is, since we updated it so recently, we're in good shape.
It shouldn't be that hopeful.
We're in good
right?
shape. A lot of them are just sort of just like not substantive. They're just language, like changing, he and she today, or
Right.
just some rewording. So it won't be bad, but it's coming, and this policy is on there too. So
Okay.
Great.
So we'll see it at some point.
Great.
Thank you. Amy, tutoring, or one of you guys, I'm sorry, tutoring bargaining update, tutor bargaining update.
John might be.
John?
So our most recent meeting was, we actually brought in the town council, we invited the union council, just to make sure that from what the lawyers were representing, it wasn't a complicated process, but we just wanted to make sure that it was done properly, and this is to recognize the bargaining unit that will represent the tutors. And I think at this point, some drafts have been exchanged between the two lawyers, between the town lawyer and the union lawyer. And I think as of yesterday, they're still trying to iron out the final language. So that's, it's anticipated that we'll get there, but it's still in process, so
When's the
that's-
next meeting, John?
I don't have the calendar in front of me, so I can't tell you, but I know we did schedule a bunch out, so
Okay.
it's not a question of we don't have a meeting.
Right.
I can't tell you the
Sure.
exact date, though. So,
I don't know if Amy had anything to add.
Yeah, Amy,
I would say that the only thing I would add is that pending hammering out this, this initial agreement, it just means that we're gonna voluntarily recognize them, so we've all, for all intents and purposes, we should probably start to just think about the fact that, we have another union in our district.
All right. Thank you very much.
Can I,
Yes, of course.
not on this thing, I'm sorry, I didn't jump in quick enough when you were talking about the joint FinCom meeting.
Yes, of course.
Just, it's more of a comment than anything else. If we do it again, it would be great if we could understand in advance if we're able to actually speak and participate.
Right.
I found that a little bit frustrating, but, going forward, if we know going in,
Right.
kind of what the protocols are, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, and I'll take that as a good point entirely. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business of the district. The school committee may adopt the entire consent agenda in one motion. At the request of any committee member, any item or items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda for discussion. There are 2 items on the agenda: regular session minutes for March 9th, 2023, and a donation to the Swampscott High School baseball team. And I'd just like to read that, if I may. The name of the donor is Laura Shackman Goldman. Laura donated $500, and a description is the donation to the Swampscott High School baseball team in memory of Alan J. Shackman, class of 1950, for the baseball team. And I'd just like to read, if I could, just if you guys could indulge me, a letter that Ms. Goldman sent to Kelly Wolf, the athletic director. Redonation to the Swampscott High School baseball team in memory of Alan J. Shackman, class of 1950. Dear Kelly, please accept the enclosed donation for the Swampscott High School baseball team in memory of my father, Alan J. Shackman. My father graduated from Swampscott High School in 1950. He was a member of the Swampscott High School baseball team, which won the Massachusetts Class B state baseball tournament in 1949. My father passed away on February 4th, 2023, at the age of 90. He was a staunch supporter of Big Blue throughout his entire life. I know my father would be honored to lend his support to the Swampscott baseball team. Best regards, Laura Shackman Goldman. Laura, thank you so much for your donation. It's incredibly generous of both yourself and your father to think of the baseball team, and it's amazing that he was a member of the 1940 championship team. And on behalf of the school committee and the entire school community, thank you very much for your heartfelt letter and for your donation. All right. So then, if I could, let me just go back over here. Can someone please make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make the
Make the
motion.
motion.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. Hearing none, the motion carries. With that, a very good meeting. I'd like to adjourn, and if I could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 There's no one opposed. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and as always, be safe.